Hey guys, welcome back to Trendy Gadget. Today we'll talk about 3 reasons why you should wait for M2 Macs. Let's head into it. The M1 MacBooks. The reviews are here for the new M1 MacBooks, and they are spectacular. Not only are they faster than the previous Intel machines, they're one of the fastest laptops ever made by Apple, with tests beating even the 16-inch MacBook Pro flagship. And I really want one. Until Apple started using its own silicon inside, and the day finally arrived, I made no secret of my intention to hold off on buying a new Mac. The Apple Store was down, the event clock was ticking down, and in almost a decade, I was ready to purchase my first new MacBook.
The new 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro, everyone is raving, they're oh so excited.
Number 3. Disappointing M1 chips. Except that I don't. Anyhow, at least not yet. While the speed and battery life claims of the new M1 chip in the MacBook Air and MacBook Pro have a lot to like, there are just as many reasons to hold on to the purchase, especially if you come from an older high-end machine. It's not so much that with the first M1 Macs, I'm as disappointed as my curiosity is piqued. My problem is not with the design, which is a carbon copy of the Intel models. Sure, it would be nice to have an edge-to-edge screen, like a smaller footprint, Face ID, Apple Light Up logo, and MagSafe integration, but the current design is nice enough. Although there's no doubt that these machines are crazy fast for their prices, there is also reason to believe that Apple only scratches the surface with what it will provide, although there is some doubt that they are faster than the 98% of PCs as Apple claims. Grab the ports. Apple offered a $1,799 step-up option on the previous MacBook Pro lineup that delivered 4 USB-C Type Thunderbolt 3 ports rather than the 2 on the base model. That's my working machine configuration, and I use each of the ports on a daily basis, as do a lot of users. However, the new M1 MacBook Pro and Mac Mini only have 2 Thunderbolt 3 USB 4 ports, just like the MacBook Air. That's likely because the M1 chip only has a single Thunderbolt 3 controller, which also explains why both ports are on the same side. But it also means that when it comes to USB ports, you cannot purchase an M1 Mac without being severely hampered. You're likely going to need a hub, which is an unpretentious solution. If you're using one for charging, it's not likely that future MacBook Pro models, even smaller ones, will have this restriction. Apple clearly understands that more than 2 Thunderbolt ports are needed by Pro users, which is why the Intel 4-port models are still on sale for the same prices as before. If it didn't recognize the need for more ports, Apple wouldn't have kept those aging Intel machines around, and I anticipate next year will bring M1 models with twice as many ports. Number 2. Only 16GB of RAM. Ports aren't the only thing that new Macs lack. They're also limited to 16GB of RAM, the same limit as the previous low-end models they have replaced. Granted, it's not a small amount of 16 gigs, but it's less than what power users want. Again, Apple understands the demand for more RAM and provides a higher-end Intel models with a 32GB upgrade for $400. That's not a terrible price, but you're forced to choose between memory and speed as well. Early Geekbench benchmarks give the M1 on the still shipping 2GHz Core i5 MacBook Pro a single core score of 1630 and a multi-core score of 7220, as compared to 1260 and 4480 respectively. Even if those figures are off by a magnitude of 10, with or without the extra RAM, the M1 is still significantly faster. But even if you don't need more than 16GB of RAM, waiting for that is still wise. While we don't quite know how fast the M1 chip is compared to the one in the MacBook Pro and the MacBook Air, we can assume that it has a higher clock speed and sustained performance. Number 1. Running hotter and faster. Instead of a fan, the M1 MacBook Air has an aluminum head spreader, as Apple describes it, to maintain blazing fast performance. The fan in the Pro is required, while the Air uses an aluminum heat spreader to dissipate heat and deliver amazing performance without a fan. While both machines will deliver tremendous speed boosts over the predecessors, it's quite obvious that the M1 in the Pro runs hotter and faster by extension.
Just to be clear, don't expect miracles. It's not gonna be ice cold all the time. It will generate heat.
And these chips are probably only a small part of what will be delivered by Apple with its M chips. There's a broad gap between the entry-level and the step-up models based on the speed test for the latest Intel MacBook Pros. The 1.4GHz Core i5 scored 397 for single core and 1616 for multi-core, using the industry standard Cinebench R20 benchmark, while the 2GHz model posted 436 and 1929 respectively. That's a decent speed boost, and it's clear that an M2 or M1Z chip is on the horizon, along with a lack of ports and RAM. I'm sorry Apple, I'm waiting for the next generation of Silicon Apple Macs, and this is the model that I'm waiting for. There are 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros in the works, rumor have claimed, and I fully expect them to deliver the specs I'm looking for, along with the huge speed boosts that Apple has already delivered. And who knows, by then we might even get a decent FaceTime camera too.
I think that you probably should wait for the M2 chip because I think they will iron out a lot of kinks that the M1 has.
What do you think about the Apple M1 Max? Do you agree that you should rather wait for the M2 Max? Let us know in the comment section. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it, hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.